You are listening to UpTalk with Sean Conahan. The gloves are off, and it's time to have a chat.
Hello, people, and welcome to episode 14 of UpTalk Podcast. Thank you for taking the time and joining us. As always, we are brought to you by our awesome sponsors, Dan Sun Photography, the Compass Rose Health and Wellness Center in Bedford, Nova Scotia, Life Shield Medical and First Aid Training, and now offering mental health first aid, so that's awesome. They're a great sponsor, and as you heard last episode, our title sponsor for this season is Project Trauma Support. Really special program and really special people, and you'll be learning about them all year. If you want to learn more about the sponsors, go to the website, uptalkpodcast.com, your one-click stop for everything UpTalk. Today's episode is supersized. We have 5 guests. Just to list them off, we have Erin Alvarez from Tema Conter. We have Karen Shopsowitz and Enrico Colantoni talking to us about the documentary The Other Side of the Hero. We have Kevin Davison, my buddy for many, many, many years, paramedic, country music artist. You probably know him from the song and now the video, When Those Sirens Are Gone. So we have him on. And then last but not least, my brother Rob Mitchell on, who took part in Project Trauma Support with me back in December of 2016. He'll be on to talk about his story and some of the things he's gone through, and also what he thought of Project Trauma Support and how that's helped him and what he's doing now. So, always with every episode, trigger warning with the people that we're talking to, obviously with the subject matter that we're dealing with. There could be some triggering conversation, so if you do have trigger issues, just make sure you're in a good headspace to listen so you can get the most out of it. So I'm sure you've heard enough of my voice for now. We're going to get right to the guests, so let's get to it. Our first guest is the Director of Communications for the Tema Conter Memorial Trust. Very special program near and dear to my heart, has helped me out through my struggle with PTSD. Really special lady up first, Erin Alvarez. Let's welcome her to the podcast. Well, hello and welcome to the podcast, Erin. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me, Sean.
It's my pleasure, believe me. Erin, for those of people that don't know you, you are the Director of Communications for Tema. Is that right?
That is correct.
Awesome. And Tema is, obviously is a cause that is near and dear to my heart and has helped me out through my battle with PTSD. And I've met Vince and the Tema family once in Halifax when they were here last year, and it is such a close-knit family, such a special group of people. So I'm really stoked to have you on to chat about it.
Well, thank you. It's funny that you say that because we always say it truly is like our Tema family, and we just keep expanding, and the people that are in that group, like everybody it just attracts such positive energy, and I think, so I'm so glad to hear that you've been impacted by that.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because that's exactly how my buddy Kevin Davison says it. He says, I'm going to see my Tema family.
Yeah.
And I really didn't know what that meant until I was sitting for dinner with all of you. Or all of them. Yeah. Vince was here. I was like looking around going, this really is a family. Everybody's asking about people's kids and what they're doing, and it just seemed to be so close. It was really, really special. So.
Oh, that's nice. It truly is. I'm so fortunate. Like, it's funny when I say I'm the Director of Communications, it's technically a job, but it's like a dream job because it doesn't feel like work. I mean, it is a lot, takes a lot of time and dedication and hard work.
Yeah, absolutely.
But at the same time, it's so wonderful, and I'm so fortunate to be in this position.
That's wicked. Before we get into Tema, because we're going to get into that and tear that apart,
okay.
Maybe just let people know a little bit about you, about your life and what makes Erin Alvarez tick.
Okay. Well, I'll keep it short, but basically, maybe I can tell you why I kind of got into this stream of things. I actually started in broadcast journalism was my background, and I worked in television for several years. And my husband is a paramedic, in the Toronto area. He's with Peel, Regional Paramedic Services, for those who know about Peel. And then I came across, I think it was because of Humber College, he also works at Humber College in the paramedicine program. He's a professor. And we went to a Tema gala. And I was so blown away, and this was years and years ago. And so I did a story about Vince for the show that I was working on. And I just clicked with Vince, and I really clicked with the cause. And then Vince asked me if I would start volunteering, and so it sort of evolved into that. But you know, Rich and I have 2 young children, 7 and 4 years old. We have 2 beagles as well. So yeah, my family is everything. But as I mentioned, like the Tema family is also such a huge part of my life. So it really kind of blends together really well.
Nice. Now you mentioned Vince, so maybe the first thing we can do is give us the origin story of Tema. Sure. How did this all come about?
Well, it truly was a tragic beginning because Vince Savoya, who is our founder and executive director, was a paramedic in Toronto. And in 1988, Tema Conter, who was a vibrant, beautiful young woman, had just recently moved from the Halifax area to Toronto to follow her dream in fashion design and in that area of work. And she was leaving her apartment, and a man who I will not name because I don't believe in naming people who do bad things. They don't deserve that. Yep. Basically brutally raped and murdered her in her apartment. Wow. And Vince was the paramedic on scene. And as you know, paramedics see horrific things all the time, and it won't necessarily impact you every single time. But for Vince, when he saw Tema, there was such a strong resemblance, like an uncanny resemblance to his then fiance, that he was immediately struck in a more negative way than his partner was. Right. And so following that incident, back in the 80s, PTSD certainly was not diagnosed. No. Sure. I would guess at all properly. And so he was dealing with a lot of the signs and symptoms that we know now are associated with a mental health injury like PTSD, but he didn't know what he was dealing with. And so he went through so much of a struggle, eventually leaving the profession before even being diagnosed. Oh, wow. And finally, I believe it was close to 10 years later that he got a diagnosis of PTSD, and then finally decided, okay, am I going to continue down this downward spiral? Because, obviously, as you know, it follows you, especially if it hasn't been properly treated. And he had this feeling he needed to contact the Conter family. So he actually reached out to Howard Conter, who was Tema's brother. And he said, hi, I'm Vince Savoya. This is my story. I'm terribly sorry for your loss. I just want you to know this is how it's impacted my life over the last 10 years. And I really want to do something in her name. And so Vince's idea back then was to start a scholarship program for paramedic students. And what they would, and still to this day, this program goes on, and what they have to do is research PTSD and other mental health injuries, and so that they can become educated themselves before going on the job.
That's an awesome idea. That's good.
Truly, yeah. And so, the charity was established in 2001, and now it has grown, as you know, into this like national hub for research, education, training, peer and family support, and it's just incredible. So Vince really did take something truly horrific and turn it into something that has changed and, dare I say, saved countless lives.
Oh, it saved my life. One of your guys' programs provides funding for therapy.
Yes.
And I took advantage of that. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any benefits to pay for the specialized therapy that I needed. And I think it might have been Kevin actually told me about the funding program. I went on, I filled out this really easy form to fill out, and within 2 weeks, my psychologist, Dr. Robin McGee, called me and said, I have a check here from Tema, and I went, what? Yeah. Like, are you kidding? And because of that, and only because of that, I was able to go and get my therapy, which primarily consisted of EMDR therapy with her.
Okay, yeah.
And it was amazing, and it's one of the pieces that saved my life, and without Tema, it wouldn't have happened. So I have personal experience with Tema and just how special they are.
Good. Oh, that makes me so happy to hear.
No, it's you guys are great, and you're huge now. you're in the media a lot, and there's
Yeah.
I don't know if there are emergency services out there who don't know about you, but I would suggest that they're probably few and far between, especially in Canada.
You'd be surprised though. I mean,
really?
I ran into, it's funny. I'm that creepy person who, if I see someone in uniform, I'm going to walk up to you and with my card and be like, have you heard of Tema?
Right. Yeah.
Because I'm like spreading the word. And I'll tell you, like a lot of the people that I walk up to, even like in the Southern Ontario area where Tema is really saturated,
right.
A lot of people don't know about us. We still have so much work to do. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. It's incredible. So thank you for having me on, because this is just another way for us to reach people.
Oh, we're going to hammer it home for sure.
Yeah,
we're going to keep hammering it. So I mentioned one program that I took advantage of with Tema.
Yes.
Tell us about some of the things that Tema does and what people can get by going to the website or information they can get.
For sure. Well, just quickly, to add to the funding program. So it was actually started with the help of Wounded Warriors Canada.
Right. Yes.
We've developed such a special relationship with Wounded Warriors. They've decided to branch out into the first responder world, outside of the military, stuff that they've done so well for so long. But instead of reinventing the wheel, they've partnered themselves with several organizations that already work so closely with first responders. And thankfully, Tema was one of the people that they reached out to.
Right.
So it's actually called the Wounded Warriors Peer and Family Support, Assistance Fund.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a long name.
Yeah. That's multiple. Yes.
Yeah. So they actually provide funding to that particular fund every year, a promised amount every year, and then we also put a lot of money into it as well. So that is there. And so how that works, you explained it very well, but essentially it is a very easy process. Your mental health professional just needs to fill out the form on the website, send it to us, and then you'll get $1,000 worth of funding towards your mental health care. So it truly is simple, not a lot of questions asked. We just want to get people help. So
it's really simple, because I've even told at least probably 3 or 4 of my fellow firefighters just in my fire station that were having trouble. Where can I go to get help? And immediately I throw them to Tema and I give them the link for that form. Yeah. And one guy, it was only 48 hours or something like that he got an answer back, and his psychiatrist was good to go, and it was amazing.
Good. Now, the downside of it is that so many people need this, and there are often times throughout the year that we run out of funds. So don't be discouraged. If there's someone listening who then applies and it says we're out of funds, there will be funds again. We always are trying to fill this up. So it will never be empty forever. But sometimes we run into some issues where the funding isn't there, but we're working on that.
Okay.
So some other things that we do, we're really, really proud of the education side of what we do. We have a lot of training happening, and even setting up peer support teams and services.
Right.
York EMS in the Toronto area is an excellent example of one of the teams that we help facilitate. I won't go into too much detail, but they've got this amazing thing, and I think it sounds cheesy, but I think it's called the Huggy Buggy, I think. And they have, right? And they have this, it's a specialized vehicle, literally meant for peer supporters to go around to the different teams and visit people throughout the day, making sure everyone's okay. So it's really following that pre-incident kind of a model, right? I mean, sure, post-incident peer support absolutely is necessary too, but think about making sure people know that you're there if you need them, and helping them feel comfortable to come to you as a peer supporter, when you need help. I think that's so important. So we help facilitate programs like that. We also have, as I mentioned, the scholarship program for students, and it's no longer just paramedic students, obviously. That's expanded to any emergency service related program.
Okay.
They can apply. And it's still a paper that they have to write, but we're willing to open it up to creative ways. If somebody wanted to do a video, I think we'd be open to that. And it's just nobody's really jumped on that yet. But we also have, what else do we do? Oh my gosh, we do so much stuff. Well, back to the training just quickly. One of the things that we have, it's called Manners, and it's psychosocial first aid training. So Manners was developed as an early and supportive intervention, that will assist people, with emotional distress that may have resulted from their involvement in an accident, injury, or sudden shocking event. So obviously that makes sense, on the scene of something, but this really fits Also with the family side of things, and as the spouse of a paramedic, I can say, well, and I think most family members would say that, we're the ones who are going to be noticing signs and symptoms first of, something, not necessarily PTSD, but it can even be cumulative stress, vicarious trauma, compassion fatigue, things like that.
Right.
And so we need to be armed with the tools from things like manners to notice these things and then also know how to appropriately intervene. One of the biggest things, the mistakes that people make is asking people, like re-traumatizing. What happened? Why are you feeling this way? Never ask that.
Oh, cool. You're a paramedic. What was the worst thing you've seen?
Oh, God.
Such a horrible question.
Yeah. Like, oh, sure. So you want me to relive my worst day and the worst day for that person? Absolutely. No problem. Like, just for your entertainment. It's ridiculous.
Sure.
I blame movies for that. But,
it is a totally natural question for someone to ask, but it's just, they just don't realize the weight of the question.
I know, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous. So anyway, like training like that, I think we're sort of branching, I'm really pushing for the family inclusion to kind of happen. I mean, we have a lot of family info.
That's so important. Yeah.
It's so important. I mean, because we're not just the supporters, but we are being affected as well. Like, I've actually had to ask my husband at times to not tell me about his call, which is, I worry that it's detrimental to him if he's had a bad call, but sometimes I'm overwhelmed and I think my imagination runs a little more wild than the actual incident, itself in reality. And especially since we have young kids, I'm constantly like hypervigilant about them because of all the crap that he's told me about like stuff that's happened to kids.
Right. Yeah.
So,
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, as family members, we need support and we need tools, and intervention for ourselves too. So Tema is really working towards, that inclusion piece as well. And also our collaboration with mental health professionals, we have a giant referral list. So if people are looking for a mental health professional, like, I really truly believe that you need a paramedic, a police officer, firefighter, dispatcher, whoever needs a specific type of person who has dealt with first responders or at least knows the specific things that you guys face, because just your regular run-of-the-mill psychologist might be extremely educated and, they believe they're informed, but they may not be as effective as someone who has worked with first responders in the past. So we have a list of mental health professionals that know, who will get it. And so we really pride ourselves on that.
That's really important because we are a little bit of a different breed.
Totally.
If you get a group of us together, we're, probably incredibly sarcastic, really quite morbid, and we don't mean anything by it, but it can really turn some people off and probably, stymie some people when trying to deal with us. But we do need someone who understands that sort of part of our personality. Exactly.
So we've got a list of people that we've specifically vetted for that purpose, so that we can,
That's
and
awesome.
we invite mental health professionals that we haven't met yet to, call us and let us know if they want to be on our referral list. We'll have a conversation with you. So,
that's excellent. Perfect.
Yeah. I'm sure I'm missing a bunch of stuff, but people need to go to tema.ca to figure it out.
Tema.ca. Get there. Absolutely. Yeah. So you mentioned, the training and ongoing education that really is the cornerstone of Tema. Yes. So as far as that goes, May is basically Halifax month.
It really is. It's kind of exciting.
Which is awesome.
And I'm not going to lie, the East Coast is kind of my favorite place.
Of course, as it should be.
As it should be. I mean,
That's
I live just outside of Toronto, but every time I come to the East Coast, I'm like, wow, like you guys are so much nicer. It's true. It's like life is just a little bit less stressful. Like it's just, there's something.
We just hide it better.
Maybe. I don't know. But you guys are awesome. But some of my favorite people come from the East Coast. So so May 24th, we're going to be there, for actually, this is really cool. Because of sponsorship, thanks to really, in most to Howard Conter, who can get sponsorship like nobody's business.
Wow.
We're able to offer our conference in Halifax free of charge. Like, so proud of that. And it's just as amazing and awesome and wonderful as the one we do in Toronto. So, the conference, you can register on the website for the conference. It's on the 24th. It's at the Kennard Center. And then that evening, unfortunately not free, is our fundraising gala. And it's a dinner, and we have a speaker at that gala as well. We're going to be announcing, this is something I didn't mention, Sean, if I could kind of put this in. We have an ambassador program. So I started this a little while ago. We launched announced our first ambassadors in Toronto in February. So the ambassador program is essentially giving us some arms across the country, because we are national, but we are really still so tiny. Would you believe there are only 4 people who are actually employed by this giant charity, and the rest is volunteer based? Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's crazy. So we have ambassadors now who Angela Javaren from Moncton is one of our ambassadors, and I'm sure most East Coasters know who Angela is, and she's so wonderful. Yeah. We also have someone from Quebec, someone from out west, and then someone from Ontario. And then we're going to be naming 2 East Coasters as 2 of our newest ambassadors in May. So stay tuned for that.
Oh, excellent.
It's really cool, yeah. And then
let me know when you open up for more East Coasters, because I want in there.
Okay, sure. Sean. All right. Well, how about I'll have to interview you for that then. How about that?
That'd be awesome. That'd be excellent. So there's the conference on May 24th and the gala. Now, before that or after that, isn't there another night where something's being unveiled as well?
Well, May 25th is going to be a screening of The Other Side of the Hero, which is a documentary that Tema has supported greatly. It is an independent documentary. A lot of people think it's like our specific project, but it is independent of us. It happens to be made by people who we consider part of the Tema family. So it's Karen Shopsowitz is the documentary filmmaker, and Enrico Colantoni, who is he's our national ambassador. He's
awesome.
Mr. Ambassador, yeah.
They're actually going to be on this podcast as well. Like after
I heard.
Karen, I'm talking to Karen and Enrico tomorrow, and we're going to line that chat up. So it's going to be awesome.
That's great. Well, they're awesome. You're going to love talking to them. So we're going to show that documentary in Halifax. Tickets can be purchased through tema.ca as well. And then we'll probably show Mr. Kevin Davison's amazing video during that screening as well.
Let's talk about that. Kevin's actually going to be on this podcast as well. This is going to be a crazy podcast. But to talk about tell me a little bit from your side, from the Tema side, about this video, this song first, and then the video.
Okay, so I remember a couple of years ago, Vince saying to me, "Oh my gosh, you've got to see this YouTube thing. This guy, Kevin, out east, he's a firefighter and a paramedic, and he's also a singer, and like whatever." I'm like, "Oh, okay, let's see." I'm sure it's going to be good. And then I see the video, and I'm like, "Oh my God." It's funny, Kevin and I kind of, well, I don't know if I should say this on the podcast, but we kind of we fight a little bit, like brother and sister. Like, it's really funny. We've become...
He told me that you guys got into a little bit of a tiff when he was last time, but, he loves you.
You know what? It's just because there's so much love there.
Yeah.
No, it's good. So I saw the video and I'm like, wow, that's awesome. So we invited him to come and sing because the song was so powerful, even in this little YouTube video that he did back then, and like the message behind it. So we had him.
And sorry, the song you're talking about is "When Those Sirens Are Gone," which ends every episode of this podcast. For people that don't know, and but it's an awesome song. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, that's fine. Yeah, no, it truly is. There's just so much depth to it, right?
Yeah.
Aside from being like a really, really good musical piece, like it's catchy and memorable. And anyway, so we had him sing at the gala that year that he did that. I think it was 2 years ago. And then it kind of evolved. Like, he became part of the Tema family, like a huge supporter of Tema, and we were, of course, a huge supporter of him. And I think he was having a conversation with Vince. I don't know if Kevin had tried getting funding to do this video, because obviously it needed to happen.
Right.
And Vince and Kevin had a conversation, and then I kind of got involved, and we said, you know what? We want to fund the making of this video because we think it will reach so many people. It kind of came in place of a new PSA at that time.
Right.
Because we do have funding, obviously, for public service announcements. But we said this is so important. This needs to get out there. And so we helped facilitate that. And I actually got to be at the shoot day in Kentville when Kentville Fire Department. So I got to meet so many amazing people. I hope I get to see some of those people in Halifax at one of the events.
I'm sure you will. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it's giant. I mean, the filmmaker, David.
It's amazing. The video's amazing. It was done so well.
Didn't it blow you away? Like, did you really?
Totally did.
I didn't expect it to be that good. Like,
I know. Like, I don't know why I expected that, but, it definitely isn't someone just recording a video on their phone or something like that.
No.
This looks like, this is professional grade.
High caliber, yeah.
Absolutely.
And let me tell you, so I need to kind of put people's minds at ease, because I think a video like this would probably cost like a ridiculous amount. Like, you could probably buy a house for it, right?
Yeah.
We did not spend anywhere near that. We had so many people volunteer their time, their equipment, their whatever. I mean, obviously there was some money involved, but we would have ended up with like an iPhone video based on the amount of money that we had, right? So we were so fortunate, that this really was a labor of love for a lot of people. And yeah, it's amazing. And
there were drones used. I mean, they used drones for this video.
I know. It was really cool. Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah.
So that's cool, yeah. So, and obviously Kevin will be there at this event. I'm actually going to be at all the events.
Good.
Karen Shopsowitz so nicely invited me to the documentary unveiling.
Good.
So I'll be there. And actually, Kevin just told me yesterday he's taking me as his date for the gala. So I'm all in there. So.
Okay. So what
that's
kind
excellent.
of dress are you wearing, Sean?
I'm going through it now. I'm going to pick one out. It's going to be really pretty. I promise.
Okay, good.
Lots of glittery stuff and bedazzled everywhere.
Awesome.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be special.
Oh,
but I'm so looking forward to it. And then also, what else do you have going on in Halifax?
So actually, I think there's going to be a golf tournament happening June 16th. It's the Help Our Heroes golf.
Help Our Heroes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Bobby McKenzie.
That's right. And Bobby McKenzie, actually I won't tell you. There's a little surprise about Bobby McKenzie that's happening at the gala.
Nice.
He's so wonderful. He'll be recognized. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
And, so if anybody wants to sign up for that info is on our website. And then of course, September 9th, I know you've already talked to Tyler Anstey about the big hike.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
For those of you who didn't hear the podcast.
Yep.
I mean, the big hike is this thing that Tyler came up with. It's sort of in keeping with, I think there's a big swim and a big, what else is there? I don't know. There's all these amazing fundraising events like it, but nobody's done the big hike. So it's going to be on Cape Chignecto.
Yep.
September 9th, and we're filling up really fast. Like, people want to do this. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who have registered. It's really exciting. Tyler is like over the moon.
He's awesome. He's such an awesome guy.
Isn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many layers to that guy. Like, you just wouldn't think, like, he's this, like, giant guy.
First of all, he's giant. He's huge.
He's giant. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely big. Yeah.
But, like, this, like, such a sweet soul. Like,
Big teddy bear.
Big teddy bear. Like, absolutely, like, would literally give you the shirt off his back. Like, he's such a kind soul, and we're so fortunate to know him.
Well, I'm putting together a team for the Help Our Heroes charity golf tournament. So he was my first pick.
Okay.
Tyler Anstey's on board, and then Kevin hopefully is going to be my next team member.
Okay.
So we just need one more, and then we're going to put a team of 4 in. I'm looking. I may have a sponsor lined up for that too, which I'll announce later. But yeah, great. So we're going to be involved with that with Bobby and trying to hype that up as well.
Good. Yeah, so there's lots happening out east, which is really exciting. And for anyone who's listening who is not from out east, like, I'm sorry, we're, saturated.
First of all, sorry if you're not from out east. Yeah.
Right. First of all, sorry.
Yeah.
But we do have plans that are in the works to have a conference in the BC area next year.
Awesome.
We're also talking about doing something hopefully in Alberta. And we're even talking Moncton, which is back out east, sorry.
It's okay, you gotta come back. You have to come back.
Yeah, we've gotta come back. So we do have plans because there's such a need for it. One of the things that's kind of close to my heart, I've talked with a lot of people in like the northern areas, in Ontario specifically,
right.
But I think this happens right across the board, is that it's kind of like the forgotten places, right? I mean, there's not a lot of mental health care happening up there. There's not a lot of, I think the stigma might even be worse with mental health there, like just, the suck it up attitude. Yeah, so there's really a need for us. And, obviously resources are tight, but I'm going to do everything I can to try to reach as many people as we can there, even if it's like through, video conferencing. We've talked about like, streaming things, which maybe I'll need your help, Sean. You saying like, what you're doing with that.
I don't know. Some people may question that, but yes. All right. Yeah, it's totally cool. I'm interested in it though.
Yeah. So yeah, we do have big plans, because we know that we need to get to lots of different places across the country.
Right.
And then, I mean, if we can expand, even into the States, we'd love to do that as well.
Oh, that'd be wicked.
Yeah.
That'd be so cool. So yeah, this, lots of stuff going on. Now, you mentioned, can people take, when you're here in Halifax on May 24th, during that conference, are there courses being offered? Can you take manners? Is anything like that coming?
My director of education and research, Nicole, is probably like, she'd slap me on the hand for not mentioning that earlier. Yes. I'm sorry, Nicole. Yes. So yes, we are going to have, an option to take manners, which is a 2-day course, and also mental health first aid will be offered, which is a 2-day course. So they'll be running, you can't take both because they're happening at the same time. So that will happen on the 25th and 26th. Those 2 days. So yes, so we will.
And you can find out all about that on the website, can you?
Tema.ca. Yes.
Tema.ca.
There's actually there's right on the front page. You'll see where you can click and you can get registered. And actually, those will fill up fast too. So I suggest people go to that ASAP.
Excellent. So on that note, with the website, what other social media pages are you on, and how can we hook up with you there?
Well, at Tema Trust, we are on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So definitely follow us there. I do a lot of, my Twitter page tends to be mostly Tema. So if anybody wants to follow me, it's at Erin_Alvarez, but the Tema stuff, at Tema Trust is what you want to follow mostly for sure.
Okay. And any links I can find for Tema and the ones you told me about, I'm going to post on our website, so people can just go to uptalkpodcast.ca and be able to see all that.
Perfect.
So that'll be awesome. Erin, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you a question I ask all my guests.
Okay.
And it is simply this. So if someone is listening to this podcast right now and is going through a tough time, struggling with mental health or addiction or really any other, issue that they just don't see a light right now, if you were, in front of this person, what would you say to them?
The first thing I would say is you are not alone. And I know it's so cliche and we use it all the time, but it is so true. And I know that it feels like you might be alone, but there is at least one person, if not hundreds, who get it and who understand what you're going through. And the second thing I would say is that your life is worth something and the world needs you. So
sometimes that's hard to see. I know
it's
that very
so
well.
hard to see. I get that. I've talked to several people who just who can't see that. And even if you can't accept that right away, just keeping that sort of in your head that your life is worth something, that you're not alone. I think, I hope that would shed some light, on the very dark situations that some people are dealing with.
Absolutely. Well said, Erin Alvarez. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I won't keep you any longer because I know you're a busy gal. But I just want to thank you again for taking the time, and want to reiterate how much I love Tema and you guys and everything that you're doing. Hopefully, I can't wait to see you guys in May. Finally get to meet some of you for the first time and some of the people for the second time, so that'll be awesome.
Yeah.
But if there's anything, the podcast or me, myself, can ever do to help Tema or you or anything that you're doing, please reach out. Because I would
you are
love
right
that.
now, Sean. You're amazing. Like you're saying
Stop
how
it.
great we are. But really, stop it. No, but really, like just having this platform that you've created, I think is incredibly helpful. Probably more so than you even realize. So I want to thank you for doing what you're doing.
It's my pleasure, as always. I'm learning from everybody. I get to have cool guests on that are awesome like yourself, and I just get to learn from them, and I'm just hoping other people learn with me. That's really my goal.
Good.
But again, thanks, and all the best to you and yours, Erin. All the best to Tema, and we'll see you in May.
Sounds good, Sean. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Next up on the podcast, we have two guests on. Karen Shopsowitz, who is a Peabody Award-winning director, and she is on along with her buddy Enrico Colantoni, who you may know from the Tema Conter Memorial Trust as the spokesperson for that group, or you may know him from his many TV roles, my favorite being, of course, Sergeant Greg Parker from Flashpoint. We talked to them about the documentary that they are involved with called The Other Side of the Hero. So let's get to it. Well, hello, Karen and Enrico. Welcome to the podcast. It's a great honor to have you.
Thanks for having me, Sean. I'm going to speak for myself, Karen. Thank you for having me, Sean.
Thank you for having me, too.
This is new, this whole two guests at the same time thing. We're going to roll through this.
This is going to go great.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. But, thank you for taking the time, guys. This has been in the works for quite a while between Karen and I trying to get things scheduled, but we obviously wanted to wait until this awesome documentary was finished, which we're going to get into. Obviously, that's why we're here today. But a big thrill, so I'm really looking forward to having this chat. Karen, I want to start with you, though. For those of us who don't know your work, can you give us a little bit of your background?
Wow. Okay. I've been a documentary filmmaker for the past almost 20 years, and
wow.
I look at a variety of subjects. I've done a lot of personal films, and then a lot of issues, and just I try to do things that have really important stories. And my work has been shown on different networks and things like that. I work mostly in TV and educational.
Peabody Award.
Oh, there you go. Throw that in there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Props.
Peabody.
And thanks for that, Karen. Enrico, first I have a couple questions for you before we get into the documentary, if you don't mind. I'm going to take full advantage of having you on the line with me here and geek out a little bit.
Sure.
So, first of all, I want to thank you. I've been a huge fan of yours for a very long time. Kevin and Jamie McWhirter all make fun of me because of how big a fan I am of yours, and they get to talk to you whenever they want. So,
Jamie's the biggest geek I know. Never mind, you should tell him.
Awesome. But obviously, I got to know you, Enrico, through Flashpoint, which is one of my all-time favorite TV series, period.
Thank you. That's great.
It's so weird because I've obviously watched the whole series, but now I'm watching it a second time because my wife loves it, and I introduced them to it. My daughter, who's 13, wants to be a police officer, and she loves Flashpoint. She has all of her Legos set up to be SRU members, has them all named.
That's great.
And she absolutely loves it. So we're watching it again.
That's great.
But the reason why I loved it is not because, aside from the tactical operations, drama part of it, which was awesome, but it was one of the first shows I saw that really showed the emotional vulnerability and the cracks in the people involved, in the officers. And right. I don't know if that was on purpose, Enrico, or if that was always a goal, but it was heavy, very emotionally heavy show, which I loved.
Oh, yeah. It was always intentional. The pilot that we had filmed before CBS came on board was really about Hugh's character that it was after the incident. The incident happened in the first act, and the rest of the show was really about his reaction to it. And, of course, when CBS came on board, we needed to adjust the storytelling. We needed to make it a little more procedural. But Mark and Stephanie were very, very adamant about protecting that initial vision of showing the cost of heroism.
What I remember most, Enrico, going back to I think it was one of the first seasons or first couple seasons, is all I remember. One of the first things I remember is you when you were hanging from the scoreboard in that stadium, and it was really an emotional episode. Where you showed your cracks, and I always remember that as it just hit me really hard to see that vulnerability, and I always remember that.
Yeah, thank you.
No, you're quite welcome.
But I'm more appreciative that you really got the essence of our show and what we were really trying to do.
It's amazing. I tell everybody about it now. I've turned so many people on about it just recently because I love it. It was simply the best. Now,
well. We thought the show was rather revolutionary in that most police shows really never showed the vulnerability,
right. Especially back then.
And that's exactly what inspired me to get involved with the Tema Conter Memorial Trust, and then wanting to make this documentary with Karen, because I feel too many people rely on what we see on television as a real testament to what these first responders go through, and it's really not true at all. For the most part, they all suffer, at least to a minor degree, But TV really wants show the heroism and people who have no other reference for a police officer or a firefighter think that that's what they do.
Absolutely. You mentioned Tema Conter, Enrico. How did you're such a perfect fit for Tema, but how did you get involved with Tema? How did that come about?
Well, it turned out that Vince and I had mutual friends in common, and when I came back to Toronto to film the show, I reconnected to some old high school friends, and one of them said, this guy named Vince Savoya wants to get a hold of you, and I go, hello. And then simultaneously, Mark Ellis was saying, hey, I met this guy, Vince Savoya, blah, blah. And I go, hey, wait a minute, that name sounds familiar. I think my friend just brought him up. So I figured the coincidence was too great to not sort of go with. And so I called Vince. He told me who he was and what he did, and we shared even more friends in common. And it just seemed like a good fit, what he was trying to do, and where who I was playing at the time was a guy who understood exactly what Vince was all about. So it just seemed like a perfect fit.
Well, and it totally is. Continues to be. So now we get to this little bit about this documentary. So Karen, how did this documentary start to form? And Enrico, obviously jump in if you want to as well. But where did the ideas come from for the documentary?
Well, Rico came to me and started to talk about this. We also, again, the whole mutual connection thing.
Right.
We had a contact in common, and when my husband and I, Mark, who shot the film, we met with Rico, and he started telling us a bit about what he wanted to do, and about the Tema Conter people, and about Vince, and our reaction was, we're in.
Yeah.
That's it. Just stop. I don't want to hear it anymore. Right. This is it. And then we met with Vince, and I heard his story, and again, it was like I had never thought about this. It had never occurred to me. I feel really stupid now in retrospect, but I think like a lot of people, it never occurred to me that a first responder would be affected by what they see.
Right. Yeah.
Because I hadn't had those conversations with them. And so after hearing Vince's story and then I remember we were sitting at some place having a breakfast or lunch or something, and Rico started telling the story about how there was one day on set where he thought if I'd only acted better, I could have saved the girl. So he woke up in the middle of the night with this dream. And it was like, oh my God, like this is really something that never occurred to me again.
Right.
And the idea started to form that let's look at the way we view these heroes on TV and think about how real people go through stuff and start to make that conversation happen. So I think that's a pretty accurate way of how it all began. Would you agree, sir?
So how long ago was that? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Enrico. Go ahead.
Because most people, when they see a police officer, a firefighter, or even a paramedic, or they see them doing their job, and they do it really, really well. But nobody has the benefit of seeing these guys when they go home. That's the difference.
Absolutely is.
So we never assume that they're suffering because they're so good at what they do.
Yeah.
Especially when we need them. Especially when we call 911. There they are.
It is such a sort of a contrast that we're able to, as first responders, we deal with the most horrific situations. We can tactically and operationally be on point, can handle all this stuff, but then when we walk in the four walls of our own house, it all falls apart. Right. We can't seem to do a thing. Right.
And we never see that. And, and I have to say with credit to Flashpoint, like that was the show that for me as well was saying, okay, something is happening here, and I wonder how much this relates to what real people go through.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you did start to see the cracks. And when that started to come out, we knew which way we were going to make this film. You asked how long ago. The idea for it probably, I'm kind of shocked when I think about it. I think we first met in
5 years.
It was like August 2012.
Wow. So throughout this documentary, you guys traveled to different places, talked to many different people. Like, what was the scope as far as the area goes? Like, how many places did you guys travel to as far as, distance-wise, or what kind of scope did you take in?
Well, at the very, very beginning, when Vince decided to go on that tour about, I think, 3 or 4 years ago,
right.
We went at the beginning because we thought this would be a great way to identify people for the documentary and also just get a better sense of what people were thinking about out there.
Yeah.
And so we started with the tour in Newfoundland, and then I think you stayed a little bit longer on it. We left, and then I went and joined them again in Calgary and drove with Vince out to Vancouver and met some people that ended up in the doc as well that way too. So we tried to go as far as we could. We went as far as also New York State, just because my husband happened to meet a police officer on a ski vacation in Quebec. Yeah, and he was having trouble ordering at a restaurant, and my husband is French and started helping him, and then said, "What do you do?" "I'm a cop." "Oh, wow, I got to tell you about this project I'm working on." And he had been at September 11th at the World Trade and had been continuing to work. So we suddenly made this other connection and went out and interviewed him in New York.
Wow, that's awesome. And Enrico, for you, because even before this documentary, you had a unique insight into this world of first response and the emotions involved and how it can take a toll. Like, your expectations before going off and doing the chats for this documentary, and then your realizations throughout, like, were there lots of aha moments? Were you surprised at all? Or, what were your thoughts looking back on all the chats you had versus your expectations going in?
Well, my initial reference was my own brother, who served as a police officer for close to 30 years.
Okay.
And in hindsight, I realized that, and he had jumped around he had done various things. He was in uniform and not in uniform, but the last thing he did was he worked in the youth bureau. And it sounds sort of benign, but what he had to deal with primarily was child abuse.
Oh, wow.
And that's when I started to see the job affect my brother.
Okay.
And he was, he's a responsible guy, so he decided to leave early, but I didn't understand it, and I wouldn't have understood it if it weren't for the show and for there was a consultant on our show, such a beautiful man named Jim Bremner.
Right.
And Jimmy was ETF. He was responsible for a lot of the calls that are now famous in Toronto history, ETF history, and he suffered a great deal from PTSD. And his story sort of reflects the lone wolf syndrome, who, if you're wounded, you're really on your own. No one's going to really help you.
Right.
The service really didn't help him. They kind of turned his back on him, and he helped himself. And now he's an advocate for PTSD, and he's still one of the strongest men I've ever met. Wow. Mentally, emotionally. It's just, having survived it all has made him just so much better. But not a lot of guys do.
Right. Oh, yeah, well, most don't. Most don't.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention something, too, that really was an eye-opener and really convinced us that we were doing the right film, is that way back in 2013, we had gotten some development money from Bell Media, and at Bonfire in Ontario brought together about, 15, 20 first responders of all different areas, and started rolling, didn't stop for 3 hours. And the stories that came to light and the sense of that everyone there was wanting to tell their story really was so eye-opening. And once people started talking, the way that people were supporting each other.
Yeah.
We knew, and it's something that's in our trailer. It's that very first scene is from, and it's the first scene in the film as well. It's from that day in 2013, which for me, I remember after just looking at my husband, Mark, and then looking at Rico and thinking, this is unbelievable. Like, we just have to tell this.
It led to a kind of conclusion, as simple as it may sound, but there is a way out. There is comfort for a lot of these people, and the simple truth is that they just need to talk about it and not feel the shame. But there's still a long road ahead. The services they may belong to might not want to deal with it.
Right.
That's a lot of shame connected to what you're feeling. And what happened in that room that day is that there was no shame. There was no judgment. Everybody recognized everybody else for what the job does to people.
And that alone is very empowering to be.
It absolutely is. But surprising how many people still don't want to do it. That stigma of like, I need to be the tough guy. I don't want to lose. And it might be as simple as not wanting to lose your benefits, not wanting to get stuck behind a job, behind a desk.
Right.
A lot of reasons. It's all individual, but the healing happens in the talking, for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, that's very true, Enrico. So that brings us to finally, you guys have put in the hard work, many years of hard work, and now we're going to come to this event on May 25th in Halifax.
Yes, we're very excited about it because it's really, it's an opportunity for us to finally share what we're doing. We wanted to do it there because it coincides with the Tema Conter Gala the night before, and I just hope people will come to it. So
absolutely. So is this going to be is this the first formal unveiling of the documentary, The Other Side of the Hero?
Yeah, and it's a special version that we've created specifically for these screenings. So it's 90 minutes long, and it includes people from all across Canada, plus our person from New York, some of the actors who portray first responders in television aside from Rico, and I think it's going to be a really great evening. I know that Kevin's going to be there, you're going to be there, some people in the film are going to be there. And it'll be a chance to watch the film and talk to us after too.
I can't wait. I'm super excited to see it. And those 2 days, and all together, even just with the Tema Gala, and then you guys coming on the back of that is going to be just an incredible week. After this event, where do you guys plan on taking this documentary? Where do you want it to go?
Everywhere.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I will be able to announce pretty soon some details about an upcoming broadcast, which is super exciting. So
perfect.
Hold on for that. I will be announcing that soon. We'll be letting people know about that. And we're hoping to go to various communities across the country. We really want people to see it. First responders, people who are the family of first responders, people like the general public who need to know about this as an issue. I think, this has been in the news a lot, and it amazes me how much people still don't get it.
I think it's going to shock the public. If for non-first responders that go see this documentary, I think they're going to leave there a different person. They're going to have different beliefs as far as the people that do these jobs. I don't know how you couldn't. It's going to be really special.
There is something that we want to say that we hope doesn't shock people, but you got to buy tickets.
Absolutely, for sure.
So good. I was trying to think how to get that in.
So
speaking of that, I just didn't want people to think, "Oh, cool, let's go see this documentary."
No, tickets.
So if people want to know about this event, can they just find that on the Tema site, tema.ca?
Yeah, there's a link on the Tema site. They can also go to our website, which is The Other Side of the Hero, all one mushed together word.ca.
Okay.
And they can buy tickets in advance, and they can buy them at the door. It's a little more expensive if you buy them at the door, so we're really trying to encourage people to get them in advance.
Absolutely.
And they should visit the website anyway, because there's lots of information about how the film started, and just you can see production stills and find out a bit more about what happened. And
so Karen, you mentioned a couple websites, and just so you know, I'll post all these links on the podcast website under some guest information where people can find all these links. So, are there any other social media links for either of you that people can check out to connect with you guys?
You can follow us on. I feel like this promo person.
Absolutely,
follow us
go
on
to
Twitter at. Well, I've got Other Side of Hero. I think it's Other Side of the Hero. I got to post that. You can follow us on Twitter. Yeah. We actually have an Instagram, but not much happens there. Okay. But you can look for us on Facebook. There's the Other Side of the Hero page on Facebook, too.
Awesome.
Our next project is going to be the emotional toll of making a documentary film.
Yeah.
Oh, that's going to be brutal.
My God.
Yeah, for sure.
It's been a journey. 5 years. Yeah. It was funny. I was looking back a while ago. I texted to Rico that I found my original notes after our first meeting.
Really?
Yeah, and surprisingly, it was pretty much the same in terms of the route we wanted to take. But it was like, wow, great idea. Story must be told. This is really interesting. How do we make it happen?
That's wicked. That usually doesn't happen, that you can really stick to your initial, initial thought process for something. No, that's awesome. Guys, I know you're busy, so I'm not going to keep you much longer, but something I ask all my guests is, at the end of each chat, is if there's someone listening to this podcast right now that is having a lot of trouble, is in that, I've been there, is in that dark place where they think they're alone, they think that they don't have any options. If you were to encounter that person, what would you say to them? Either one of you or both of you.
Are you going?
Don't all jump in at once.
I need to be clear that I'm not a therapist. I'm not skilled to give the help that they need, but there are numbers. There is the Tema Conter hotline.
Absolutely.
And the reminder of, that whatever they're feeling, it's completely appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Completely appropriate.
That's important, yeah.
It's like you're human. You're going to have bad days, and all you need to do is talk to somebody. You're going to be okay.
Yeah, I would say definitely reach out to tema.ca, because I know now so much of the work that they're doing, and also don't, it's the same, obviously I'm not a therapist either, I'm a filmmaker, and this is all new to me, but it's so important to let your family know too.
Very important, because they're the ones that are left in the dark most of the time, and until something's really broken, and then they find out. But that's really
what I found interesting about the whole family thing is, it was surprising to know how relevant and profound this documentary is in just that there are so many people that are related to first responders who still don't get it.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
And they still don't understand their pain, or why they behave weirdly, or why they drink too much, or why they're depressed. They just don't get it.
No. And
these are family members.
Yeah.
These are family members that don't want to deal with the mental health issue of it.
Yeah.
And I think this film will shed a lot of light, especially to those people.
That's gonna be
I think that's what's so important.
That's
Absolutely.
great, guys. I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you. Again, I want to thank you both for your time, and it's, again, a huge honor for me to have you on. I can't wait to see the documentary next month. I hope I get to meet both of you at the event. I'll be there for the gala as well the day before, and the conference the day before. So I'll be.
Yeah, I feel like I know you after corresponding for so long, so I'm really excited in person.
Now, John, are you a first responder? Are you a firefighter?
Well, I was Rico. I was a paramedic for 17 years. Worked with Kevin, same company as Kevin, and Kevin and I grew up together and got into the whole first responder thing together. And I was a paramedic here in Nova Scotia for 17 years until March 2014, when I broke and couldn't do it anymore, and was forced to find another career, which was quite humbling, and it was devastating at the time. But of course, once I got on my feet a little bit, I really wanted to help others, which is why I sort of started the podcast, because I needed to learn more about it. I knew nothing about PTSD, or where to get help, or some resources that I could use. So I'm using the podcast to teach myself all these things, and hoping that people will listen to it that want to learn as well. But that's sort of my story in a nutshell, and I know this pain really well. I live it every day. I battle my head every day, but the battles are getting better, and I'm winning more of them, and which is all I can ask for. And I have my family, and I'm not in that dark place anymore. But it got dark. I was in the dark place.
Awesome.
I know what that feels like.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for this. I have a lot of respect for you, and I have been following you, so thank you.
It's my pleasure, always. And you guys please keep doing what you're doing. I love you guys. I love your work. Anything I can ever do to plug something or get a word out, please let me know. It'd be my honor to do so. And again, I can't wait to see you guys next month.
Oh, thank you.
Me too, Sean. Thanks.
All the best to you and yours, and please be safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Up next is longtime friend, paramedic, firefighter, country music artist, mental health advocate, Tema Conter spokesperson. The list is simply too big, and if I said anything else, it might blow his head up a bit. But I'd like you to welcome my good friend Kevin Davison to the podcast. Welcome to the podcast, brother. It has definitely been too long. Should have been on sooner, but thank you.
Absolutely, buddy. Thanks for getting a hold of me.
Oh, well, for sure. Obviously, we've known each other a long time. Too long to mention. We don't want to age ourselves.
Elementary school.
Yeah, grade 6. It's been a long time. Yeah. Back in the hood, back in the day.
That's right.
But, so, thank you very much. And as I think I actually made a mistake when I was speaking to Enrico and Karen. I said that we actually got involved with EMS together, but we didn't. You were involved first in EMS and with the fire department, and you're probably the reason why I got involved in it at all. So, just seeing what you were doing, and so I've always looked to you for that. So you were a big influence on my decision, my career decision for sure. So certainly a pleasure to talk to you in this setting. So thank you once again.
Sure. That's awesome. Thanks, bud.
So for those of us who don't know you, which, it's hard to believe that someone might not know you by now, but...
Oh, my gosh.
But for those of you that don't, just tell us a little bit about yourself, or maybe some things that, people that even do know you as a fan maybe don't know, and maybe how you got involved with EMS, growing up and getting involved with that.
Yeah, well, it goes way back. Maybe you can remember where I lived in New Minas. I could see the fire station, and when my parents moved me here when I was a very young adult, 4 years old or so.
Right.
The fire whistle would always be blowing, and when there was a fire, it didn't matter if it was 2:00 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon. I was always up to watch the fire trucks leave the station, and that's kind of where it all got started. Watching these old trucks, rolling out of the station lights and siren, and I just very intrigued at a young age with it. And then sort of after that, it was the show Emergency with the Johnny and Roy and the fire trucks and the new paramedic. This new term with this paramedicine, and that's really when it started. Ever since I was a kid, I was like, I've got to do that. I've got to ride on fire trucks and do these things, right? And that's really where it started.
Wow.
And I always said I was going to do it. So, when I turned 18, as soon as I turned 18, I was able to join the fire service, and it was only a couple of years after that I started doing some ride time with the ambulance in Kentville, and before I knew it, I was working on the ambulance and doing volunteer firefighting. So that's kind of all how it started, and I was at it, right up until now. I still do volunteer work on the in the fire department, and I still do the odd shift on the ambulance. So
yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of hard to get my foot out of the door now that it's in there, right?
It is hard to get out for sure.
Yeah.
The and also a big thing with you has always been music. So even from, you had been in bands even since since you were, in high school. Yep.
Well, I guess, and I guess the two big focuses of my life were music, because really, I say when I was 4 and lived here and I saw the fire truck, 4 was the first time I ever did a solo at a church camp where I was in front of a whole church of people and sang a solo.
Yeah.
So I guess it all I sort of knew from a very young age that the two of the things I wanted to do in my life when I got older. So, and then that's how I kind of get into music. I stuck with it. I stayed with bands. I didn't do all that well in band at school, as you probably remember.
Miss Jackson loved you, buddy.
But yes, I know. But I sort of picked up the guitar kind of on my own and just sort of went with it. And now I have a career in music. So it's pretty neat to have both, sort of best of both worlds.
So, for you, while working on the ambulance, when did you sort of start to realize, either with yourself or by seeing others, when did you start to realize that, there may be an issue here that people aren't talking about?
I think I knew it right from when I started, because I found it very strange when we would go on a call where a couple of kids were killed, or we go on a highway accident where, back then cars weren't designed the way they are now,
right.
and the injuries were just unbelievable, and things that your mind doesn't really prepare you to see. And and then getting back to the stations and having the older guys say, just keep your mouth shut about it. And I right off the bat, like when I was even 20, 21 years old, I was thinking, is that normal for me to keep my mouth shut? Because I always been told, if something's bugging you, you should tell somebody about it. Well, then then there's this stigma thing with all paramedics, is that we're this class A personality that you have to act tough.
Yeah.
And so everybody did that for so long, and I just remember trying to deal with things my own way, and even from a young age, thank goodness I found music, because that kind of took me away from it and got my mind off it a lot of the time, where a lot of people don't have anything. They go home and they think about it, or they have a drink and stuff, and that's sort of not the way to do it. But I remember from a very early age in my career that there was probably going to be an issue with it.
Yeah, for sure. You and I have now seen, countless people that we worked with and friends, who haven't dealt well, or have gone through some things, and either they've come out really well, and we know some people that have not made it really well. And, and it just seems to be, now knowing about it looking back, we could probably pinpoint more than a dozen other people that we worked with that were probably right on the line of. Oh,
absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
It's scary. It's certainly scary.
It's very scary
looking back.
Yeah.
And then so you're working as a paramedic, and you're still doing the firefighter thing, and you're busy with your music, and then when does the opportunity to for this song, When Those Sirens Are Gone, when is that? How was that born? How did that come about?
So where I'm sitting here talking, as you know, my basement, I was sitting in the same spot. Basically, I was sitting when I talked to Doug in Vancouver, Doug Folkens, and we rewrote songs. We were writing songs together. We've probably written 5 or 6 together already. That some of them haven't been released yet, and I, it was one of those things where I asked him to think about it. I said, think about a song, like not one that's going to be overly depressing or sad, but let's bring the issue up sort of subtly in a way, and see what happens with it. And maybe we can get a couple people talking about. Really, when I say a couple people, I really meant a couple people.
Right.
Like just maybe a few friends of mine that were going through some stuff, and that's when I thought that when Doug and I were writing it. That's what I was thinking, that maybe the people I worked with would listen to it, and some of them, this is how I thought. Some of them would make fun of me about it, and others would actually go, you know what, that's a really good song. And it kind of just ended at that. I didn't expect it to really go any further.
Right.
So basically, he just said, "I'm going to just talk to you, Kev, about your job, and let's write down some things that you say." So basically, when he was interviewing me about my job, we were writing lines down of sort of what I was saying next. So
right.
He would say, "So what do you do when you get to the station? Like, what do you do when you first log onto your truck and you got your truck checked out?" I said, "I don't know. We usually grab a coffee." Okay, so then the coffee line was written down.
Yeah.
When you get the most, sort of jacked up for your shift. Well, when it's stormy and something's probably going to happen, and you get that feeling, dark and stormy night. When there's a storm rolling in, and then you're having your coffee, and then you're trying to drink your coffee, but you get that first call. So this is exactly how we wrote the whole song. It's sort of in that order.
Wow.
And we sort of told a story about it. And that's how the story came out. And if you watch the video, then you really see the story, because the song was really good and it did really well for itself. But the video depicts the story of what first responders go through. A lot of them don't admit it.
Right.
The people that have watched it, those that don't admit it, really, really struck those people very hard. And some that don't really think about it, it struck a chord with them as well, because it is such a story for us.
Yeah, it's the story of I think anyone that works in the industry can relate to it, because it relates to all branches of EMS, and whether it be police, fire, ambulance, military, search and rescue, what have you. I'm sure I'm missing people, but everybody can listen to that song and we'll talk about the video in a second as well, but they can listen or watch and they immediately relate. It's like it's a story that goes on in their head. I mean,
absolutely.
You know, and you put this song out, and I remember when you put it out on Facebook, just a little video with you in your house.
Yeah.
And then, you know, then we got it onto YouTube, and you know, and then from there, I think that's when Tema Conter sort of took notice of you. Is that right?
Yeah, it was mostly Vince at the time. Vince and I were just sort of talking back and forth, and that's sort of how Tema got involved with it. And basically, it was a fairly new song, and you know, I was able to get to Toronto and play at one of the conferences there, and I guess that's when it really kind of started to do some stuff and take off, and more people were listening to it, and it, you know, sort of started going more worldwide than anything. But
right, and I mean, then what has your involvement been with Tema? As far like, what are some of the things that you've done with Tema?
Well, I try to attend the conferences as much as I can. I've gone to 2 already in Toronto, and I've also gone to the conferences in Halifax. I sort of just I do whatever I can, whenever they kind of ask. If there's something they need from me, then I will certainly do it. If you know, I found that when I first went, is that I just became this group just kind of happened.
Right.
And there was probably 10 or 12 in this group that became very close friends very quickly. And I mean, you know, we've all kind of seen that with organizations and stuff, but I don't know, I guess when y'all kind of fight for the same thing, it just brings people together like nothing else can. You know what I mean?
Oh, I didn't know what you meant until, you know, or what you mean until last year, or maybe it was earlier this year. Sorry, my dates get fuzzy, but when I went with you when Tema was in Halifax, and I went with you to meet some of them and sort of hung out with you and them, and I told Erin this as well, when I'm sitting there and watching all of you communicate with one another, the Tema group, it is really like a family, and you guys, it really shows you guys deeply care about one another. You're asking about each other's families. You know, there's no other way to put it other than it is a family, and it's a really close group and a really special group of people.
Yeah, it's kind of a very tight-knit group. It's not, I don't even want to say, like, it almost sounds like you're talking about a gang when you're talking about, like, how it's so close like that, but it just fell together, and we all just became, you know, if one of them asked me for some type of help, if I asked them for help, they're sort of right there, you know, sort of at an arm's length away, and that's what I really think that, you know, with my involvement with them, and they know that I'm there for anything that they need, and I know that you know, the same from them, and that's kind of how it just sort of came together, and they ended up, you know, coming here to the Valley to shoot the documentary that they did, and you should have seen that. I mean, it was an extremely emotional time here at the house, and that right then and there, I became very, very close with Enrico and Rosanna, his wife, and it was this crazy bond that happened here at my house with all of them. There was a lot of tears and a lot of crying and you know, a lot of emotions going on, and I think when things like that happen and you connect with people like that, you sort of you stay friends with them forever. And you know, whether or not they're a paramedic or a major Hollywood actor, you know, you become friends because of something else. It has nothing to do with anything else. It has to do with, you know, you found that bond, and it just kind of happened, right? Yeah,
absolutely. And I do want to talk about the documentary. And just before that, so the song was out there for around 2 years or so.
Yeah.
Correct me. Yeah. So and then all of a sudden, then finally the push was finally here for the video. So just explain how that came about.
The video, I was always wanting to do a video with that song, but I had no idea how I was going to be able to do it.
Right.
And I applied for some grants and some things to get some funding because you know, they are very expensive. And I just remember I went for a drive and I grabbed a coffee, and I was pretty frustrated about not getting any money from anybody, any grant money, and I'm thinking, how am I going to do this? You know, I can't afford the money that it's going to cost me. And I remember I pulled into the fire station and my phone was ringing, and it was Vince Savoy.
Right.
And he goes, "Kevin, what's going on?" I said, "I'm having a bad day, Vince. I don't want to talk about it." And he right off the bat was like, okay, first thing, just calm down. I just want to chat with you about what's going on. I saw your post. You're pretty frustrated. Sometimes I air my dirty laundry on Facebook, which I probably should. I'm glad I did it that day because he knew I was pretty frustrated and upset.
Right.
And he said, well, what are we looking at? And I gave him a price on what it's probably going to cost to get a video. And he said, look, you have done many things for us. There's, you've helped us, with lots of things with your song and getting people in contact with us that need help. And he said, I think it's time for us to do something else for you, which is funding the video.
Wow.
And that's what they did. And I was sitting in my car blown out of the water. I couldn't believe he even said that. And he goes, yeah, don't even worry about it. I'm going to talk to Howard Conter and the rest of the group. And he said, as far as I'm concerned, we're going to cover that for you. And I think it's going to be huge. And I think it's going to save a whole lot of lives. I mean, he said, I think the song might have, but the video is going to be so much bigger and so much better.
So the video itself was shot in Kentville at your fire station. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously I've seen it, and for anybody who hasn't seen it, you have to search it. There'll be actually, if you go to my website, uptalkpodcast.com, it's right on top. There's the YouTube link, and you can play it right from there. But search it on YouTube. You got to watch this. If you are a first responder, or if you know anybody that is, which is probably true, then you need to watch this video. It's legit. You guys, they use drones. They had, this is a crazy professional video.
It sure is. It does look like Hollywood. I had a gentleman that played with Emerson Drive for 17 years, a fiddle player.
Wow.
He does now productions with videos, and he's the one that I contacted just through the Country Music Association that I'm involved with, and I gave him the price, and I don't know if this guy made $1 off this video, but because of it wasn't a whole lot. I didn't expect it to look like what it did. He really put a lot into it. It turned out his dad is a retired RCMP officer.
Oh wow!
In Montreal, yeah. So it all kind of came together. I mean, when things are supposed to come together, they come together.
Oh,
that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Like that's just the way it is. It just came together so perfectly. And I mean, when you watch it, I mean, I talked to 2 people today already about the video. One guy said I was absolutely blown away when I watched it. And I had a guy from our province just message me and say him and his dad are both military, and they spoke on the phone this afternoon, which is very strange. And he said that they both started crying on the phone, and
wow.
And both of them are admitting that they have an issue. And after they watched the video today.
Yeah. So I mean, the video was how long ago was the video put out?
2 months. It's been just 2 months now.
2 months, and I know a couple people have seen it on YouTube. Weeks. It's up over 200,000, way over 200,000.
We're just reaching 250,000 right now.
Wow, and that's just on YouTube. I mean, you count the Facebook and other social media.
Yeah,
it's definitely huge. It's getting noticed for sure. I mean, and you noticed. You mentioned also the documentary. So the documentary that you're talking about is The Other Side of the Hero, which is going to be It's going to be unveiled in Halifax on May 25th, and it was done by Karen Shopsowitz, who is a Peabody award-winning, legit, documentary director.
Yeah,
she's
amazing. Yeah,
and Enrico Colantoni obviously involved with it as well. And you were involved with that too, were you?
Yeah, I got a chance to watch the documentary with people might know Dave Wilson, who was the NDP leader for a long time. Used to be our health minister in Nova Scotia. And Dave and I were in Toronto together in February, and when they released the doc, there was a private screening, and but there were still about 250 people there to watch it, and I was pretty set back at the amount of footage that they had used me in because of my song.
Right.
And I sat there and I just was like in my seat thinking, wow, like they've got a lot of people on here, like a lot of first responders on here. But you think of a lot, but I mean, there's not that many, but they got one guy from Nova Scotia and that was me on it. And they really shot an amazing portion of that here at my house. And I'm just, I'm set back a little bit by it. Not in a bad way. Yeah. Just that they really, I mean, this thing is amazing, and when you see the people involved in it, from Hollywood straight through to paramedics and families, it's just unbelievable, Sean. Like you won't. I mean,
yeah. I mean,
you
obviously
won't believe
you've
it.
seen it. You've seen the documentary, and I'm going to see it here in Halifax on the 25th. Crazy excited too.
Yes.
But I mean,
Yeah.
in your opinion, I mean, is this something that whether you're a first responder or a family of a first responder, or even even if you don't know a first responder, is this something that you think you're going to get something out of?
Yeah, I really firmly believe it, because Karen is such an amazing person and producer and director, and she does so much that she really opens up things that people want to see. I mean, everybody knows about 9/11. Everybody knows about the traumas after 9/11, about the death and even the suicides that nobody talk about after 9/11 with first responders. Right. And she really puts that in the documentary, that everybody in the world needs to watch this, because it could just be, your neighbor across the street, and he's across the street from a first responder, and that neighbor may walk across the street and say, listen, I just watched the documentary, and I don't know anything about first responders, but I want you to know that I'm here to help if you need me.
Right.
So, I think everybody needs to watch it, so they sort of know exactly what people go through. Enrico's an actor. Enrico's one of the nicest men I've ever met in my entire life. Enrico's not a first responder.
Right.
But he's heavily involved in it, because his brother was a first responder. Right. His brother was a cop. His brother was, got sick, probably from the job, had a heart attack. And it just goes to show Rico's passion, that he wants to work with first responders. So anybody can, watch this documentary and go, wow, that was thrown together amazingly. And it just shows this whole other side of people that I really think people need to watch.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. I'm bringing it's going to be interesting, because my wife Amanda and my daughter Julia are going to come see it as well. And I'm really excited about that, because I suck at communicating to them, especially since I've had, troubles with PTSD. I really suck at communicating my feelings or emotions or my thoughts. They seem they don't come out right. And so I'm really excited to bring them and say, okay, acknowledge the fact that I suck at communicating with you, but just watch this, because this is what I'm trying to talk to you about when I tell you about what's bothering me or what's going on. Just sit and watch this, because this will do it for me.
Exactly.
That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, no, that's a good thing. It's good to have. It'll be nice to have your family here to sort of see that. It's pretty emotional. I'll tell you. There's usually not. There won't be a dry eye in there. There's just some things that happen. Sort of, all the interviews are just off the cuff, so they're not. They're not. Honest to God, people think they might be. There's things written down. These things are right off the top of Enrico's head, and the answers are right off the top of the first responders' heads. And there's even actors on there that are tearing up because they act as first responders, but they're not really first responders. And then they meet these guys and girls, and they break down on camera, because they see what they need to, they see what they go through in a real scenario, where they're just doing fake scenarios, and even the fake scenarios get these guys and girls that are just actors.
Wow. And that's on the 25th of May, and that's at Mount St. Vincent University. There's tickets available for that. You can purchase tickets to come see it, and I would say if you are able at all to get there for that, please do, because you're not going to regret it. Check that out, and obviously there'll be links to that on my website if you need to find out where to go. But the day before that, the 24th, Tema's here for their conference and gala, and are you going to be involved with that as well?
Yep, I'll be there for the whole day on that Wednesday, and I'll be involved with the gala that night. This will be of course, my second one. Last year was sort of my first hurrah, but I'm looking so forward to this, and now that the video is out, and more people can come up and talk to me about it, and so many people have watched it, and I just look so forward to talking to people, and hopefully people walk out of there with a clearer mind and know that it's not you're not weak to go out and ask for help.
I hear, and also more importantly, I hear you have a crazy hot date for the gala.
Yeah, I do,
awesome.
Actually.
Awesome.
How'd you hear that? Oh yeah, you were talking to her.
yeah. But no.
Yeah, Chrissy gets to come to the gala with me.
I'm not talking about Chrissy.
And you know what?
I'm not talking about Chrissy.
This is the first one.
I'm talking about me. You're taking me to the gala.
Oh, you're talking about you?
Yes.
Oh yeah, you're coming too.
Yes. Oh,
Okay, I got 2 hot dates.
Yeah.
I got my wife and you coming.
Wow. That's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
All right.
Man, it's going to be a great night.
Well, that's fine. It'll probably just end up with me and your wife talking amongst ourselves, and we'll just leave you out anyway. So.
And I know. I know how you guys are. You guys are people watchers. And, it's kind of funny to watch you two.
Yeah. No, we're good at it. It's good. It's fun.
I know you are.
Yeah. So that's going to be great, and I'll be there as well on the 24th, and obviously at the gala as well. So other than that,
Yes.
Kevin, that's not busy enough. So, you also still have a very active, actually getting busier music career. Other things you're doing for Tema and, plugging this video and song, opportunities that have come from that. So what are some things you have going on otherwise in the next few months?
Well, first things first. I still have the boys are growing up like crazy.
Absolutely.
And if you can't hear my daughter Brindley upstairs screaming her lungs out.
Good set of lungs.
Yeah, she's got a good set of lungs. She'll probably be a little bit of a singer. There's just so much going on. And, once we just did a little mini tour with Aaron Pritchett and raise some money for some people that were sort of in need. And now, once May gets started, it's full throttle ahead. We're all over the province. We're in New Brunswick. We're in Ontario. We're in New York. We are in Texas. We are all over the place. Yeah. So it basically starts in May. June is just jam packed. I get to play a show with Tom Cochran and Red Rider. And so there's so much. And then you got the festivals coming up, Acoustic Fest in just outside of Windsor, which is a huge festival with the best maritime artists you can actually find. So the year is going to be crazy. KevinDavisonMusic.com if anybody's looking to see where I'm playing.
That's where they can go if they want to see anything about that.
Yeah, KevinDavisonMusic.com or Kevin Davison Music on Facebook. Kevin Davison 11. If you Google it, there's a few things on there will pop up, and you can certainly follow it that way as well.
What else on social media can they get a hold of you on? You're on Twitter and all that stuff?
Twitter, Kevin Davison 11 on Twitter, and then that'll link you up to Kevin Davison on Instagram.
Perfect.
And then you can just I've got a lot of people probably listening to your podcast that are on my Facebook anyway.
Right.
They've got a personal Facebook page which is just my name, and I've got the Kevin Davison Music page on Facebook as well. So there's lots on there, and then KevinDavisonMusic.com is my new website.
You say your own name a lot. Just so you know.
Oh, geez, I don't even like saying my own name, but you know what? Anyway, you can get on there, and it's just a very small website just to sort of show where the shows are and stuff like that.
Oh, perfect.
So, certainly follow and come out, and we always put on a heck of an energetic show. So if you like to dance and sing and have fun, then certainly come out and have a listen to the band, and we'd love to see you.
Wicked. So Kevin, before I let you go, I'm gonna do the same thing I do with all my guests. So. If you could say something to somebody who's listening to this podcast who might be struggling, whether it be with mental health or other, life issues that we all go through and may not be seeing that light at the end of the tunnel right now, if you encountered them, what would you say to them?
One thing I will say, and I do a lot of talks with on PTSD and through mental health, or like I say in Texas, I'm going to be a keynote speaker there, and the thing I always end with is, everybody to remember that it's not weak to go see somebody. It's not weak to just go and say, look, I've got an issue going on here. It's the strongest thing you're ever going to do in your entire life is to get that help and to ask. And it's a strength that we all need. And I certainly encourage anybody that is going through any type of, you're right, not even mental health. If there's things going on, I've been through divorce and it's not fun. And, I'm like you too. I've never been diagnosed with PTSD, but I'm the same way. Like when you talk about the fuzzy head and trying to get your thoughts in order, we've been through a lot of stuff over the years, and it is hard. It's hard for me to do that as well. I totally relate to what you're saying.
Yeah.
So, reach out and talk to somebody. Even if it's not a doctor for the first little bit, it might be just a colleague or a friend. Let somebody know so they can reach out and help you.
Well said, brother. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
So, Kevin, listen, it's been a long time coming, but I thank you so much for coming on. Obviously, one thing I forgot, I got to tell you right now. Thank you, obviously, for anybody who has listened to the podcast. Thank you for allowing me to use the song. When those sirens are gone at the end of the podcast. It's a perfect ending to every episode. But thank you, brother, for letting me use that.
Yeah, no problem, man. Anytime. You know that what's mine is yours. So you need something, you get it.
Well, thank you very much again, Kevin. Listen, I love you. I love everything that you're doing. That all you have to
do as well, brother.
Oh, thanks. All you have to do is reach out anytime. I'll obviously be hanging with you in May if I don't see you before. But until then, listen.
Can't wait, man.
Stay safe, and all the best to you and your family. And I'll see you soon.
Thanks, brother. See you very soon. Can't wait.
Thanks. Last but certainly not least on this episode is my brother from Project Trauma Support, Rob Mitchell. Rob is an Ottawa paramedic who took part in the Project Trauma Support program when I did back in December of 2016. Really excited and had a really good chat with Rob. I hope you enjoy it. Let's welcome him. Welcome to the podcast, brother. Thank you for taking time.
No problem at all. Thank you for having me.
Rob, listen, it's such an honor to have you on as a brother with Project Trauma Support. You attended with me in December, and that's when I met you. And I got to know you, and, really I grew to love you as a brother, and I'm so happy to have you on to tell a little bit of your story.
Yeah, it's, I gotta say, I'm sad we haven't had a chance to talk yet. We've been texting a bunch since we met in there December, but it's really nice to hear your voice.
No, it's great to hear. And, part of that mostly is my fault because I can't stand the phone, and even I don't know, sometimes it can be triggering for me, which is odd considering that I do a podcast, but
it's not odd. You don't have to justify it. It's okay.
No, but I do suck. Like anybody could ask me to call them, and I'll be, yeah, okay, I'll call you, and I won't call because I will avoid it like the plague.
Non-committal sounds very different for most people with PTSD. Non-committal.
Yeah, but I want you to know you've been in my thoughts, obviously, and I love you.
You've been in mine too. I got a good story for you, actually. Once we get to it.
Oh, sweet. So listen, why don't you just tell us a little bit about you and how you got into EMS, this whole crazy world.
I will. So I grew up in Ottawa. I'm 32 now, so
a baby.
Just a baby, exactly. So I grew up in Ottawa. And actually, if you would ask me in high school if I wanted to be a paramedic, I would have laughed at you. I wasn't really into the sciences. I really enjoyed math and English, and I was more interested in pursuing a business career like my father had. And so I had no interest in EMS, and then did a little stint at Bishop's University at a very young age, very immature, trying to follow in my father's footsteps, and it wasn't giving me what I needed to get from it. I had a decent job in the summertime working for the government, and I just realized that wasn't really for me. My head wasn't really in it for the books, and after about a year and a half, I decided to take a step away from it, and ended up out west. My uncle's in Alberta, and he distributes fire trucks, and he also manufactures wildland firefighting equipment. So he got me on with a wildland firefighting unit, and I fell in love with it instantly. I was out there for 2 summers doing that. In the winter times, I did seismic drilling, and just had an incredible experience in Western Canada. We fought a fire in Dawson City in the Yukon. We were there for 47 days fighting that thing, and spent some time in BC, in northern Alberta, did some drilling in Saskatchewan. So I just got to see lots of this country that I'd always taken for granted as a Canadian. It was really amazing to see the Rockies, see the Yukon, see the Klondike. It was a really humbling experience. But after a couple of years, I started to get tired of living in the bush and sort of missed my city slicker lifestyle, and so I applied for a couple fire departments out west, and it seemed that no matter how well I did, I was always being beaten by people that were already paramedics. They told me, Edmonton told me, if you go get your paramedic stuff done, we'll likely hire you next round. So perfect. So I spoke to mom and dad. Hey, I want to go back to school. So very luckily got into Algonquin College and started attending there in 2005.
Yeah.
And I did it to pursue a career in firefighting, which I'm always happy that I came at it from that angle, because there's this weird beef between fire and EMS, paramedics, and I've never understood it, because I've worked on both sides, so I've always tried to get my students, get anybody that I'm working with past that, because we don't need that in our field.
No, it makes a big difference when you know both sides, for sure.
Exactly. So I did the 2-year course there, and during that time really fell in love with the idea of patient care, and started doing the preceptorship and was just loving it and haven't looked back. I was very fortunate to meet my now wife when I was in that program 12 years ago. My goodness. Yeah.
So, and so you started working. You were working in Ottawa, were you, as a paramedic?
No, actually, when we finished, Ottawa wasn't hiring at the time, so we both got jobs in Kingston, which was incredible that we were both able to get jobs in the same spot. So we moved off to Kingston. We'd only been dating, oh my goodness, we'd only been dating 5 months, I think, at that point. So that was a surefire way of figuring out whether we'd be able to live together or not. But
trial by fire.
Yeah, trial by fire. But we survived it. We worked in Kingston for me it was 5 years. For Christina it was 4 years.
Right.
And then we transitioned here once, because we got engaged in 2009 and married in 2010. So that 2010 is when she came here full time, and I followed here the year after in 2011. And we've been here ever since in Ottawa.
So, at what point after you started working did you start to realize that something might be wrong?
Pretty early on, actually. Like, I attended a scene. I can't even remember the year now, Sean, which is odd, because a lot of the bigger calls that came up over the last 6-7 years, I can remember those vividly, the dates and everything. But this one I don't really remember when. I think it was maybe spring 2009, maybe.
Right.
And we went to a head-on collision between a car and a dump truck, and car was up in flames, and there was still signs of life in the car, but we couldn't do anything because it was just a big scorcher. And I at that point in my career, I think it had been 2 years at that point. I was still sort of intrigued to see those things. I don't want to make myself sound sick, but it's just...
No, there's an adrenaline rush to it. There's an
adrenaline rush and a curiosity to it. It's just like, I want to see it, and then it'll be easier to see it the next time. That's sort of the mentality that I had,
Yeah, absolutely.
But I remember vividly, my wife and I, we were just boyfriend and girlfriend at the time. We were driving back to Ottawa on the 401, and we drove by a car that was on fire. And I'm not a big crier, and I was crying while I was driving, So that was the first time. So that's 2009. That's only 2 years in that I realized that there were residual effects, but I didn't like that was not something that we really talked about at work. Christina, my girlfriend, fiance, wife now, was incredibly supportive during that time, and it's always been nice being married to a paramedic, because we just understand. Like, I think we used to talk about things a lot more when we got home, and now we talk a lot less, especially her being able to talk to me, which I feel pretty guilty about. But but over time we've really talked a lot less about work. But in the same breath, we're able to be really supportive of each other without knowing many details, just because we know what it's like to be in those situations, So been very fortunate in that respect.
Absolutely, for sure. And then there did come a point. Were you diagnosed with PTSD?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with PTSD in 2015. I had seen. So I went to a pretty bad rollover car accident in April 2015, and that was the first time that I really put stuff on paper that I was really upset by what had happened.
Yeah.
That was one of the first times, although not the first time, but that was one of the first times I cried at work. Once we delivered patient care over at the Civic Hospital here, right. I broke down and yeah, so that was the first time that we ever really wrote anything up. There was some stuff written about some previous things as well, but this was the first time that it was really written up for WSIB, and I think so that happened in April, and then I saw a psychologist in July, did a bunch of tests, and went through a big rigorous interview, and then I got my diagnosis over the phone from WSIB at the end of August that year.
Really?
And
I took that long. It was almost 3 months before you got to see a psychologist.
3 months before I got to see a psychologist, and then almost 2 full months before I received my diagnosis from that time, yeah.
So what was happening in that initial 3 months? Like, you were waiting to talk to somebody. What were you doing? Were you at work?
I was still working, and I was still working, and I was doing what we call EAP. So that stands for Employee Assistance Program. So years ago, I'd say it's 2013, I attended to a call that still affects me, unfortunately.
Right.
But I'm really working on it. But yeah, that's when that call happened, and there was some other stuff going on in my life as well. I reached out to EAP, and I started really, really relying on them. I found a really, really good man that worked there, and
good.
And he really kept me going for the longest time. And after that incident in April, I started ramping up. I don't think I'd seen him that much. I think I'd sort of dwindled it down to maybe I'd see him once every couple of months. But then it was like, okay, something happened. I need some jock time. So I went in and talked to him, and I saw him as often as I could. I can't remember how many sessions we get, but I think it's something like 1 a month or something. So we were trying to see each other as often as we could, and he sort of kept me going for that summer. But another way that I was coping, Sean, was I could tell that something was really wrong, but what I decided to do instead was to just get more work. So I started working for our base hospital, which is our regulatory body that certifies paramedics to work within the province. And I earlier on that year, it started working for Algonquin College, doing labs and clinicals for the advanced care program. So I was just making myself busy, and then we had a job competition.
Rob, if you're anything like I was too, it was any overtime you could get was time that you were at work and didn't have to communicate, didn't have to try to talk to your own family, which is next to impossible. You'd rather be at work.
Well, and that's sort of it, but it becomes a bit challenging there because so I had those, and there was also a promotion posted for me to try to get an acting supervisor position,
right?
Which I also got during that summer. So it was just like work, go.
Wow.
And it wasn't necessarily to avoid my family. I'll admit that things were a little rocky at home, but I still. Like we could call my work partner. You could find out. Like I was always happy to go home. Like I always wanted to see my kids. I wanted always wanted to see my wife. It's just my biggest struggle, Sean, was when everybody would go to bed. It was really hard for me to be by myself. So I think I was just do whatever I could to. Okay, I'll go get this job and I'll work on that when I'm up late at night, or I'll just do something to keep myself distracted.
Totally makes sense. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was August. You said August of 2015 is when they finally came through with the diagnosis?
Yeah, and I was actually wrong on that. So it was September. September was when I got the diagnosis, and I was in the middle of the supervisor training. So I went to another, how can I say, horrifying call at the end of August. I took a couple shifts off. Right. And that one was written up as well. And then I was like, should I take, like, people were urging me, you should try to take some time because that's a tough one. And I said, I got soup training coming up. Like I was very fortunate to get that position. And I said, we'll be in the office for a month. That'll be a really good break for me from the road. So it was during that training that September that I received my diagnosis. Mm. And I gotta tell you, I didn't accept it at first. I thought to myself, I did not survive the first few minutes of Saving Private Ryan. Like I don't have that, you know. Yeah. And I accepted the fact that I needed help, which was good because I started going in for weekly appointments, but I wouldn't accept that it, like the severity of what was going on. And I really don't think I accepted that until, maybe this past fall. Yeah. Like I started to realize things actually got worse. Things actually got worse as I went off, but I do want to impress upon people that it is pretty normal once you realize there's something going wrong, that things go downhill a little bit before they go back up. But
sure, absolutely. So I mean, how did you come to hear about Project Trauma Support?
So Project Trauma Support. So So I'll just finish up the story there about when I actually just went off work. So I finished the soup training at the end of September, and went back to work. So I was trying to mix in these weekly counseling sessions with a psychologist and working at the same time, and it was really not going well. Yeah, man. I lost my temper at work, which was a very rare occurrence. Normally I was very monotonous. Like I normally talk to everyone the way I'm talking to you right now. Yeah. And I also generated a complaint. I don't remember if that was the fall or the summer, but I argued with a patient's family member, and like I can actually still feel that sense of guilt just saying it now, you know. So I was just doing things that were so atypical, and then my psychologist, my wife, just begged me, like, just take a month off, you know, just take a month off. And I made a plan to, with my stepdad, or not my stepdad, my father-in-law. So my wife's dad, he and I made a plan to finish a room in my basement. So I had something to do while I was off, you know. Right. And now that 1 month turned into however many it's been now. But yeah, Project Trauma Support. So, I felt very isolated as time went on. Like, don't get me wrong, like my wife has been extremely supportive. My parents have been supportive. My sisters. So I have had support systems around me. Right. But unfortunately, something that I was doing was hiding from people what was really going on in the darkness. So like everyone, like the people tight and close to me knew that I had it, but I never really explained my triggers or what was really happening or why I would act differently in certain situations. So that was on me. Like I was trying to protect them by not telling them, but it actually made things worse for everyone, you know? So that's one thing I'd like to impress upon people is the importance of being open with the people you feel close with, you know, which is much easier said than done, but it would have saved me a lot of trouble. Mm-hmm. So, last summer, we got an email from our chief, and he spoke about a program called Soldier On. Right. So Soldier On is a military-run program for PTSD and occupational stress injury, and I think even for some physical injuries as well. Okay. And it's a fitness-based camp, and last year was one of the first times they were able to invite first responders because they had some funding from Boomer's Legacy. Right. So I went to that camp, and while there, I met a few City of Ottawa firefighters. And this was the first time that I ever spoke with anybody else that had PTSD, and that was September 2016. And again, I had amazing supports. So don't let what I'm saying next take away from that, because I love all of them dearly, and they were great supports to me. But this was the first time I could talk with anyone that I didn't have to really explain myself. Like they just understood. We all came from such different backgrounds. So there was military there was law enforcement, there was firefighters, there were a couple other medics, and we all come from such different backgrounds and such different work, but we were all going through such similar struggles. So it was just like, it was validating. It was so many things. So I'll forever be grateful for Soldier On having me at that camp. We went out to Calabogie all together. So through that camp, I met two Ottawa firefighters, specifically Jason Bird and Brandon Hogan. Yeah. And they had been attending a peer support group in Smiths Falls that was held weekly. So I started going to that, and that's where I met Hal Hughes. That's where I met Dr. Joanne Hu. So I met all these people, incredibly special people. So it's just like this. I'm so fortunate that my path went through there, and by going through a few of those meetings, and let me tell you, man, like I was terrified going into my first meeting. I was so hesitant. Jason Bird, luckily had been to a few himself, and he came and got me because I knew, like, if I drive my own car, I'll walk in, I'll just walk out, you know.
Right.
But the hardest step is just going in. So if someone's trying to convince you out there to get to a support group, the hardest thing going in, but it's okay, you know. So I went in and could barely get a sentence out, but I just couldn't believe what I was seeing in the room. Like there were lots of other people like me that seemed sad and down, but then I was looking around and I saw people smiling and hugging, and I was just like, whoa. And that made me feel even more sick, you know. I was like, whoa, what's I didn't realize that I was that different, you know. Right. But I just kept going with them, and I was feeding off the positivity, and then they started talking about this cohort thing that was going on in December. And I applied for it, and thank my lucky stars I got in. So that was an incredible experience. When did we go, Sean? I think we went December 9th to 16th.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. Anyway,
yeah. So we went from a Sunday to a Monday, and I walked in there, one amongst 12 men, all different backgrounds: law enforcement, military, paramedic, fire.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you can hear what I'm saying, but we were pretty broken men walking in there.
Yeah, very broken.
Like I remember our postures and our mannerisms and our tones of voice, like everything was all just so shut down the first day, and I kept thinking to myself, like, there really is no one size fits all diagnosis for PTSD because all of us suffer in different ways.
Yeah.
But I was like, there's no way that they're going to be able to help 12 guys here. Like, there's no way because we're all so different.
Right.
But by the Friday, I don't know if you can agree with me here, but by the Friday, every single one looked taller. They were speaking with pride. They were going home excited. Like, it was
inflated. They were, they came in a little bit deflated, and they left a little bit inflated. They were
inflated and hopeful. Like that, I think that was the number one thing that we all got, or at least that I got from it, was hope for the future. You know, I can't tell you how good the hug felt from my kids and my wife when I got home from the cohort. It was just
that was awesome. Yeah.
Because for the longest time, my wife and kids have needed someone that has some emotional substance at home, you know, and I felt like so excited to get back and see them all. And it was, they gave me a real gift there to be able to go back and have the hugs and have the time I did with my family. Yeah.
It was really different coming home. I felt the same way.
Yeah.
And just, the program itself is just, I struggle to find words to talk about it, but it was just so special. There were so many special moments with special people. It was amazing. It's life-changing. It really is. I'll keep saying that until the day I die, but it is.
Yeah. And I was able to attend one recently, so I went to the one in April where I quote-unquote shepherded. So what that means is...
did you really?
Yeah, so essentially just like, for all the lay people out there, I was just like a camp counselor. So I was just there to take care of the man and support them in the peer setting as best as I could, and I gave them a little bit of insight about my life and how I try to come at struggles from a different light now. And I got to tell you, man, seeing it from the other side, like watching the transformation because we had 10 men go through this last one.
Is it weird? Is it weird to watch?
It was incredible. Like it was, I don't know, to go back to some of the places that you and I went, Sean, and to watch others go in that same path and to watch their epiphanies and see how differently those men left. Like I felt so hopeful for those men and their families and their marriages, you know.
Oh my God, that must have been so awesome.
Yeah. So one thing I want to touch on is after leaving our cohort, so Jason Bird was one of the men that got me into going to the Smith Falls group.
Right.
That peer group. So Jason Bird is a 23-year professional firefighter. And we also left the cohort with Gary Mellon. So Gary Mellon is a long-standing OPP officer.
Right.
And I tell you, man, like I remember my first time going into a peer support meeting, as I said earlier, just terrified, could barely get my words together. Christmas was a little tough. I'm not going to deny that. More so probably for my family than me. That's one of the things that I really hope moving forward is that families get more support, like of course we're suffering, but the collateral damage is just completely unnecessary. But yeah, so Christmas was tough, and then things sort of started to snap back. I was like, okay, wait, at the cohort, we meditated every day. We got physical fitness every day. We thought positively about things. So I started doing that again. And then within a couple of weeks, Jason, Gary, and I decided, well, we need a support group in Ottawa. The one in Smiths Falls was swelling. Like there were, I think one night there were 28 of us in a boardroom that holds 12, So we said, let's get one going. And we set our goal to get one open on February 20th. And we held our inaugural session on February 20th. We had 27 people show up.
What?
From military, fire, paramedic, law enforcement, corrections, dispatch, like any first responder capacity.
Holy smokes, that's awesome! Congratulations, brother.
Thanks, man. It was and it's kept going. We're doing it weekly. I can't give you a location right now because the location that we were using we're having a little bit of difficulty with, but we will 100%.
Is there a Facebook page for it or anything like that for it yet?
There is. So if you're able to find me on Facebook, well, that's the thing. It doesn't. We don't actually have a site yet. But if anyone has you on Facebook, find me, add me, and then I'll add you to the group. And it's just a Project Trauma Support Ottawa chapter. It's not a searchable thing because we try to maintain confidentiality within the group.
Right, so it's a closed thing. You got to be
it's a closed group. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So just message you if they can find you or me. Message you if they want to be in, and you can send them the link.
Exactly.
All right.
And so we run it every week, and every week on my profile you'll see, or Jason's profile, you'll see the posters for where it is, when it is, and what to expect there.
Sweet. That is so awesome, brother. That is so awesome to hear. And
since we opened the Ottawa one, I don't know if we still have time, but
go ahead.
There was initially just the one in Smiths Falls started by Hal Hughes.
Right.
Now we've got a group in Kingston that's going to now be run by two members that just went through the cohort. So just amazing.
Really?
We've got the Ottawa group. We've got a Fort McMurray group being run by a fellow that went through the first cohort with Hal.
Sweet.
Nice. So just incredible. And Davey, one of the boys from your and my cohort, went through, and he's starting one up in Bowmanville that got started a couple weeks ago, and we got one starting in Guelph on May 4th. So, this thing
are blowing this up. This is great.
Yeah, it's really taken off. And a quick story for you.
Yes.
Tell me how much time we got here. Do we have enough time?
You go. There's no time. Go ahead.
All right. So I want to tell you a story about the impact of a cohort and your podcast. So I was down in South Carolina recently, visiting my parents with my family, and ran into a little bit of a conflict. So my family had to leave, and I had to stay down there for a little bit.
Okay.
But very fortunately for me, Mr. Jason Bird came down to see me.
Huh.
So one night we were hanging out, and he's like, "Hey man, you know what's weird is like we've never listened to Sean's podcast. You ever listen to Sean's podcast?" I said, "No, I haven't, but we really need to, because he actually asked me the other day if I check it out." So we were driving in the car and loaded up UpTalk podcast. Here we go. So started listening. The episode we got was when you were speaking with Marie-Julie Cosenzo.
Right.
So we were driving, and I was listening to what you were talking about, and I was listening to her sort of intro about herself, and I heard her say she's from Ottawa, she's been married 10 years, sort of the timeline that she's been off, like very similar to mine, like, and I kept saying, I was saying to Jason, she sounds so familiar, but she works in Gatineau, so like, how do I know this girl?
Right.
So I did the right thing. We pulled over to the side of the road, and I was like, man, we gotta figure out who this is. So
yeah.
Looked her up on Facebook, and like
immediate chills. I
creeped her. I creeped her.
Very good.
And I gotta tell you, man, immediate chills.
Really?
Yeah, in her Facebook picture, she's holding her son. And years ago, I responded to a medical emergency at their house, and where I met her son. So it was just like this crazy, like, how is Sean talking to this woman that I met 4 or 5 years ago? And like, there's so many similarities in our lives. And I vividly remember her telling me, like, I'm a Gatineau medic, and it was just like, oh my goodness. And we recently got her out to a peer support meeting as well, where I was able to tell her, like, hey, remember talking to Sean? Well, listen to this story.
That's awesome. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's
such
neat
a
to hear.
small world, man. Yeah.
It's a crazy small world, for sure.
You're making connections, buddy.
Oh, stop it. No. Not at all. Listen, so before I let you go, Rob, I have to ask you the same question I ask everybody else. So, if you were to encounter someone who's listening to this and struggling and having some issues, mental health or otherwise, if you encountered them, what would you say to them?
Well, this is it's a multifaceted answer. So
I would expect nothing less from you. Go ahead.
Yeah, don't. No, number one, don't give up, because it feels so devastating and it feels so overwhelming, especially when you start to realize like what's really going on, and it's a really hard time for you, for your family, but don't give up. It's integral to have an entire mental health plan. So if you're not seeing a mental health professional on a weekly, bi-weekly, however many times you can handle it, you got to get yourself into doing that, and connecting with others. That was the biggest piece for me. And I want to say, you got to have a mental health plan in place. You got to be seeing a professional, because our peer support groups and the friendships that we come across through these programs, like the cohorts and Project Trauma Support and all the different peer support stuff, it's all informal. Like, we're not counselors. We don't have all the answers. So it's very important that people do have a mental health professional involved in their plan. But the number one thing that has really helped me a lot is the peer support. It's the connecting with others, because it validates you. I don't know if many people out there have been asked by some of their loved ones, like, we need the old you back.
Yeah, for sure.
It's almost
absolutely
and I've always tried to say, like, be fair to yourself, because I used to be upset by that question. I used to think, like, well, I can't really be the old me. But what I'd like people to understand is that they can actually be better than that. And that's by making connections with positive people and getting themselves into safe spaces like these peer support groups. And through networking and doing those types of things, that gets you into treatment programs like the cohort. So that's another step, is if you're struggling, reach out to either myself, reach out to you, who can get you in touch with me, or anybody else from the Project Trauma Support team. We have a website, so it's projecttraumasuppport.com. And click on Contact Us and write us about our program, and we'll let you know. Another great resource, and I touched on this earlier, Sean. Sorry if I'm dragging on here, but
no, drag away. It's awesome.
Families are essential. They're what a lot of us sort of use to hold us together. And they need help. They need help identifying what's going on. They need support of their own. In Ottawa, there's actually a group for spouses of people that have PTSD. So I can get you some info about that. I can't speak offhand about it because I don't know the name and stuff, but I'm aware that it's going on, and it's awesome. Sure. Awesome. And but back to the families. If you go to our projecttraumasuppport.com website, click on the information for family section. There's a great little blurb there about what to expect from a family member, and then I've also put a link there to the Veterans Affairs website in the United States that explains how you, as a family member or as a spouse or friend or what have you, how can you help someone that has PTSD. And there's really good information on that site that gives you sort of methodical approaches. And so don't give up, get help, get connected, and help your family. Don't forget your family. And I know that sounds like guilt. I'm not trying to guilt people into don't forget your family, but they are a huge piece, and they need some care as well. I'm really hoping that as time goes on, the legislation, provincially, federally, whatever, starts looking at helping families and marriages and that kind of stuff, because those are unfortunately a lot of them are falling victim to this epidemic. So
thank you for those words, brother.
Yeah.
You are, definitely well taken. Thank you very much. And thank you for taking the time again to come on. It's a pleasure to have you on. You know I love you and everything
I love
that you're
you,
doing.
man.
I'm here for you always.
You bet.
No matter what. More love, less judgment, as Handsome
That's
Hal would
it.
say.
Handsome Hal, more love,
Handsome
less
Hal.
judgment. We all need that. It's true, man.
But man, listen, until we speak again, I just all the best to you and yours. Please be safe. Keep doing your work. You're doing good work, and you're going to get through this, man.
Thank you, Sean, and thank you for doing this podcast and having me on. I feel honored to be a guest.
Oh, pleasure's mine. Thanks, brother.
Thanks.
And there you have it. That does it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I loved it. I loved doing it. It's so great to have awesome guests that take the time out to come on and teach us some things. Continue to show me and hopefully you as well that we are definitely not alone as first responders or otherwise. And there's always people that are willing to help you if you're going through some struggles, whether it be with mental health or, like I said earlier with Kevin, life happens sometimes, and sometimes we need a hand up. And that's all we need to get our confidence back. So big thank you to my guests, Erin, Karen, Enrico, Kevin, and Rob. You guys were all awesome. Big thanks to the sponsors. Again, you can check them out on the website, uptalkpodcast.com. Please share the podcast, subscribe on whatever medium that you listen to. Leave a review, leave some feedback. Message me on my website to tell me what you like and what you don't like, so I know maybe some things I can bring to you in the future. Not sure yet who's up for the next episode, but I can promise you that they will again be awesome, and we will learn some things from them. So until then, please take care of yourself and each other.
'Cause we ain't superheroes, we're just ordinary people trying to make a difference and the first on every scene. And it's a heavy, heavy burden to carry all this hurting when you can't unsee the things you've seen. It keeps going on. When those sirens are gone, it keeps going on. When those sirens are gone.